Hi, in this unit we're going to have a look at vocabulary linkers. In short, a vocabulary linker is a piece of vocabulary that refers to another piece of vocabulary. Out of context, that might be a little bit difficult to understand, but in practice it becomes quite easy to see. For example, if I talk about Mr. Brown, instead of saying Mr. Brown did this, Mr. Brown did that, and this belongs to Mr. Brown, I could say Mr. Brown did this and he did that and this belongs to him. In this case we've used he and him which refer to Mr. Brown. These are examples of substitution. Another example of vocabulary linking to other vocabulary would be, instead of saying work all the time, I could use a synonym like job, responsibility, task or position. Instead of saying house repeatedly, I could say home, dwelling, building or flat. These are examples of synonyms. I'm sure you get the general idea about vocabulary linkers now. There are some great links below the video which explain how to use substitution and synonyms, so please stop the video at this point to refresh your skills if necessary. In this video, however, I'm not going to teach you how to use substitution or synonyms, but rather the problems that are caused if these two are used incorrectly, and another vocabulary linker error. So, what I'd like you to do now is to read the following three texts and see if you can spot what the error might be in each text. You will only see the texts for 30 seconds, so please pause the video to take as long as you need to think about what the problems might be. Okay, now that you've read the three texts and no doubt you've got a great idea of what the problems might be, let's see if you're right. The first text talks about a meeting, and a gathering, and an assembly, and a reception, and a get-together. Can you see what the problem is here? Instead of only referring to a meeting and perhaps being afraid of being over-repetitive, the author has gone a little bit synonym crazy. The problem with this is that although all of the words are synonymous with meeting, they do not all mean exactly the same thing between themselves. A get-together is different to an assembly. A reception is not the same as a gathering. By using multiple synonyms, there's a real chance the author will confuse the reader, or worse still, draft a message which is just nonsense. Here, the best solution is either to sacrifice a bit of style for the purpose of clarity, or better still, redraft. There are a number of ways you can redraft, and here you can see two examples. In the second text, there is a problem which exists in English, but not necessarily in Polish. Also, this problem might be very difficult to identify if you are the author. What am I talking about? Well, let me explain. First of all, we talk about an invoice. Then we talk about a correcting invoice, and these are two different things. Then there was a phone call in which we have to cancel an invoice, and it's this use of invoice in English which could refer back to the original invoice or the correcting invoice. So which invoice do we have to cancel? The reader has either got to guess, which I wouldn't recommend, or contact the person who sent the message. This error is what we call an unclear antecedent. I said that this error may not occur in Polish because the Polish language, as I've reliably been told, follows particular rules as regards order and proximity of language. Therefore, logically in Polish, invoice might only refer to one of these. In English, however, we don't follow the same conventions, so this is confusing to the reader because it gives the reader the possibility of coming up with two different options. I also talked about it being difficult to spot if you're the author. If you know what you're writing about, to you the message is clear and obvious. But to someone who doesn't know the context or indeed your thoughts, it's not clear. So when you're writing, sometimes you make the mental assumptions that the reader will know what you're talking about, where in actual fact they won't. Therefore, spotting these errors when you're self-editing your own work is very difficult. The solution is to make sure that the substitutive term clearly refers to what it's substituting. And we can see that here. In the third text, you can see that two words are overused, email and send. This over-repetitive language doesn't look too good, does it? It actually makes the text quite difficult to read and understand. Well, there are a couple of ways to correct this. 1. Use appropriate synonyms, bear in mind the first problem that we looked at though. Or 2. Redraft part of the text or all of it. We can see those solutions now. Okay, there we have it. Synonyms and substitutive forms are fantastic at showing our understanding of English, and by using them, they give much more flow and depth to your writing. However, get it wrong, and at the best, your writing will suffer from bad style. At the worst, you'll totally confuse the reader. But if you bear the above issues in mind, you'll be better at spotting them and correcting them in your writing when you reread your work. You do reread your work, don't you? Okay, have a look at the questions next to this video, and if you want to find out more about the issues I've discussed here, please look at the links below.